And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Who's going to win a Super Bowl this year? The playoff bracket is here for the NFL, and we're going to break down our picks on who we think is going to reach the big game, as all the commercials call it. Before we get there, though, Sean, can you tell our listeners if they wanted to put out a futures bet, they want to make some bread, unlike you and I, actually like me, but unlike you, loser, where can they do it?
I can't even defend that. Had an awful Sunday. New year, new read. Thank you, Cam, for the updated BetOnline read 2025. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. Whether you're a seasoned fan or first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything: football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. Folks, we got a month left of football. We got like a month and 5 weeks of football left. I'm saying get your fix in now like I am. Just cover the board. We're not playing roulette on the outside. We're picking numbers. We're playing on the inside. A lot of chips on the table here. Touchdowns, three-pointers, hat tricks. BetOnline has you covered on every game, every play, every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.
All right, Sean, as I said, we are going to be predicting who we think is going to reach the Super Bowl. Playoff seedings are out. Chiefs, Lions, not that much of a surprise. Kind of was the chalk from the preseason. Ended up getting the number 1 seeds. And now the fight to survive amongst the rest of the groupings with a lot of possible outcomes here. I want to just jump right to the Final Four. If you had to pick your Final Four, because we're not going to just sit here and walk through every single matchup. Well, I think that this is going to happen for this game. Jump right to the Final Four. Who are your Final Four teams that you think reach?
Oh, that is so daunting. I am taking the Bills in the Final Four, and I might dabble with the Chargers in the Final Four in the AFC. I think the Chiefs could get knocked off in the playoffs. Crazy take. I'm aware of it. The Chiefs are an absolute world beater, 1 seed, cleared everybody with all the dark magic, with all the evil, with all the one-score games. I'm aware. I think the Chargers are playoff built. I think the Chiefs are a bit on fraud watch, as they have been squeaking by all year. And the Bills may be the most complete team in the AFC. NFC, I have the Lions in the Final Four. I got the Eagles in the Final Four.
Oh, you went that direction.
I'm sorry about the chalk, but the run game matters. In the playoffs, Jalen Hurts, even if he can't be as dynamic and healthy with his arm, coming off of the injury, I think that they have the run game. They have the offensive line for a deep postseason run. They are built that way to continue to win and grind down other teams who might be trying to flex their flashy offenses through the air. Eagles get it done through the ground.
My Final Four, Sean, that I think that how this is going to pan out. I think it's going to be Bills versus Chiefs. I think that we're going to get to that point on the AFC side that the 2 hottest, most well-rounded teams are going to reach the AFC championship game. But I think on the NFC side, I think Rams versus Lions is going to be that final. I think that the Rams, and I've said this before, I think that the Rams have the most potential to not be the most unexpected team because they've already won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. They're young in a lot of position groups on defense, but it feels like they got hot at the right time. They put out a little bit of a stinker game against the Jets not that long ago, but the way that they played against the Bills sticks in my head. The way that they were able to put up points to that degree to win the shootout, but also have the performances where their defense takes over, the ability to adapt and to play to specific scenarios, I think carries. The Lions just feel like this team that they just have the right coaching staff. They don't need to be the number 1 seed. They got healthy right when they needed to. And when other teams are dealing with injuries, they're in the best position. So I think, and I'm going to go as far as to say this, Sean, I think the Rams are going to beat the Lions and they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be Bills versus Rams in the Super Bowl because we already saw the Bills beat the Chiefs.
Uh-huh.
And I think that there's a potential for an unexpected outcome here and that the Rams fall short again.
Oh, that scares me. That scares me on a deep Rams playoff run. Okay.
You're not bought in? You don't like it?
2 through 7 in the NFC, they all have their concerns. Vikings gave NFL fans tons of concern after the final Sunday Night Football performance against the Lions, where they got beat over the head with a hammer. The Buccaneers looked awful in 3 quarters against the Saints. The Commanders, year or two away, they just don't have all the pieces. Eagles, if they stay healthy, can be a real threat. Packers, health concerns at the quarterback position could get, and I think will get bounced first round. So looking at it, the Rams, if we're looking at non-drama filled, just play football teams, they might be the next best team behind Detroit in the NFC. I just don't see them beating the Lions, though. I don't know if they can truly keep up with that offensive firepower. Plus, David Montgomery getting a little cheeky with the media.
It's true. He did kind of hint at maybe coming back.
He was hinting at the possibility of a return. Obviously, no formal update on that yet. But if he comes back, then I think the Lions are a surefire Super Bowl favorite and appearance favorite, if I'm putting a line on who would actually make it. If he comes back, Lions for sure.
The only thing that scares me with the Lions and the performance that they put up against the Vikings on Sunday Night Football, I mean, it was nuts. It was, you look away for a second and that game went from being a defensive headbutting match to not a blowout, but a pretty handed win.
Yeah.
They won pretty confidently as soon as Jahmyr Gibbs started to pop off. But it feels like with some of the injuries that they suffered down the stretch, and Terrion Arnold's supposed to be coming back with the foot injury that he suffered, but it just feels like there's every game this past month, it feels like somebody else keeps getting banged up. And I'm not trying to sit here and predict that like there's going to be an injury, but they are currently at this current moment banged up on defense without Aiden Hutchinson, without Alan McNeil. Like they're in this position where they're thin on depth. And as I've mentioned earlier, the Rams are in this spot where they brought back a lot of their key guys. I know that there is a lot of hope going into a matchup with a lot of young dudes on defense, but those young dudes are balling out. Young dudes can step up and make plays, and there's been teams in the NFL's history that have gone on to the Super Bowl with young cores that were leading the charge.
The main reason why I'm still having so much confidence in the Lions is because they didn't beat the Vikings in week 18 with a bunch of trickery. They didn't do all that. They just delivered a beatdown. The first half, was it tight? Yes. But then they broke out the paddle and just started spanking. And they spanked them for a whole half. Yeah, I know. Calm down, young dudes. Say that more. The Lions.
Man, I just love young dudes.
I just can't believe that. I can't believe that the Rams actually secured it because you've made this point. People have made this point. One of the last teams I'd want to face. Like I think the Vikings are in for an absolute hellstorm going up against an uber-prepared Sean McVay-led Los Angeles Rams team who has recent playoff experience, who have made deep runs under this regime. It is a daunting task to think that you're going to go up against an LA Rams squad and get out unscathed or not get pushed to your absolute limits like we've seen them do in the postseason with Tampa Bay as of late. That was a crazy-ass game. The Rams had no business being there, and they still gave an absolute bar fight of a fight.
Who do you think on the AFC side is going to reach the Super Bowl?
I want Bills. I want Bills bad just because I think they can do it. The Chiefs, I don't like them getting a week of rest and relaxation. Here comes post-winter cut Travis Kelce looking like he can run again, shed a little bit of the Christmas weight. Maybe he's not so fat and embarrassing on the field and can actually step up. People were writing this narrative, Joe, if you remember in September when he came out with the slump. They said, he's just going to dog it all season, and in the postseason, it's going to be 10 touchdown, 140-yard, 10 catch, 140-yard, 2 touchdown game for Kelce. Looks vintage. That scares me a lot. I have Ravens on postseason fraud watch. I had Texans early out, Steelers early out. Chargers make me nervous, but it's got to be Bills or Chiefs. Final 2. If the Bengals made it, the Bengals would be my Rams of the AFC.
I think a lot of context was added, and this is kind of a crazy way to go about this, but the way that the Chiefs looked completely dead when they played against the Broncos, a lot of backups were in. I think it really contextualizes how much Patrick Mahomes is lifting them up. Bills already beat them once. The Chiefs have been the luckiest team in the NFL this year. I don't think that the Chiefs are in this position that they're going to figure out a way to beat the Bills. They're going to have enough luck to carry them to this spot where they get to the AFC Championship game. This just feels like the year. It feels like the year, the way that Josh Allen is playing, that he's got just such a hold of how to command the team and help get them over the top. He's a happy guy because he doesn't have Stephon Diggs bitching at him all the time. I think that is that missing step forward, and that they're in this position now where they can actually legitimately win a Super Bowl.
I will note what I said about the Eagles and their run game for January and February. I will say it applies to the Bills. James Cook had a fantastic year. They took a huge step forward running the ball. Josh Allen, obviously, massive threat to run that thing also. Outside of Baltimore, they probably have the best rushing game in the AFC. And I like I said, I don't think Baltimore is built for a deep run, even though they have the king. I know you have the king, but it's still the Ravens. We all know that they're going to make some awful coaching decisions in a huge moment, and they're going to just boot themselves out. Bills can run the ball, and they have my MVP for the season. Yeah, I can see them making the deep run.
Who's your winner? Who's winning it?
Oh, good God.
Who wins the Super Bowl per Sean Anderson?
Jesus Christ.
Have a little more confidence, loser.
This
Jesus.
is a tight match. It's a whole tight playoff. This is a great parody-filled. Sean Anderson, playoff Super Bowl winner prediction official. Detroit. I'm locking in on Detroit right here, right now. Jared Goff gets it. The run game gets healthy. Possible Aiden Hutchinson return in the Super Bowl. It could all be shaping up for Detroit to win it. I'm going with Detroit to win it all.
I can't get behind Detroit to win a Super Bowl. And plain and simple, we look at the track record the past 20 years of who has won the Super Bowl. They are teams, for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, with premier quarterback play. Are the Lions good enough to get there? Absolutely. They're good enough to get there. They got the bodies. They've got the most well-rounded and coached up and motivated team in the sport. But it kind of reminds me of this, when the 49ers got there, not this recent time with Brock Purdy, but with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Garoppolo just couldn't do enough to take them over the top. And Jared Goff has done some great stuff this year. He has been a tremendous leader. But I just see too many times where he's B+ and he's not A+. Josh Allen's A+. Patrick Mahomes is A+. So if it comes down to it, the Lions have to go up with either of them, or if it's Lamar Jackson and they get in, the Ravens get in. There is just too much superstar power on the AFC for me to pick against the AFC. But amongst that, I'm all bought in. I'm all bought in on Josh Allen. Okay. I really think that Josh Allen, it's one of those seasons where it feels like it's his year. As much as the Chiefs have lived off this luck, and as hard as it is to stop the run game for the Ravens, the Bills just have the vibes. They just have the vibes. So I got to go with them.
You know what? I'm not going to knock.
That's a terrible analysis, by the way.
I'm not going to knock a Lions Bills Super Bowl. A vibes play would work. Who's got dead vibes that nobody should be picking? Texans have dead vibes. Packers have dead vibes. Buccaneers have dead vibes. Vibes matter. They do matter in the postseason. You have to have momentum. You have to get rolling. Wild card weekend. Obviously, you need the win, but you need a actual definitive win to rally your team and fan base. It can't just be a slog if you're a team that's middling in the 3-7 range. If you want to get a win, you have to absolutely stomp them out or win in dramatic fashion for the vibes.
All right, Sean, let's get caught up on some of these coaching moves that happened today. There's uncertainty for what's happening with the Cowboys. That might end up going down soon if Mike McCarthy's coming back or not. Of course, they can't get rid of their general manager, who is apparently, Jerry Jones, a fantastic actor that everyone's been talking about.
Did you see it? Did you see him acting his ass off?
He's been fucking with us this whole time.
Dude.
We've even said it, that he's senile. No, he's not. He has been effing with us this entire time.
Precise timing, great dialogue, absolutely captured the moment. It took away.
He's a Renaissance man.
From absolute world-class actors in that scene. Unbelievable.
I have brought this up before. I watched that man in Indianapolis walk out of a bar with two very attractive women very clearly leaving with him, not just where happened to be. His arms were around them and consensually. That man has a lot going on. He is a renaissance man. He might be one of the most perfect men out there. I'm sorry that I doubted him.
That clip of him in Landman completely flipped my entire narrative on Jerry Jones.
Have you watched that show?
No, I have not watched that show.
Gerard Mayo was fired by the New England Patriots. Sean, I got to be honest. This was so freaking stupid. This whole thing. The hiring of Gerard Mayo and then to bail on him at the end of the season, giving him no time to develop and build his team. They were defensively extremely stout. Were they perfect? No. Were there a couple of bad games this season? Absolutely. But did they hang in a bunch of performances that they shouldn't have with, frankly, an extremely mediocre defensive roster? Yes. Do they have a very bright young quarterback that could go on to be a tremendous future player? People are calling him the next Josh Allen with the way that Drake May looks. Absolutely. You know what you do in that situation? You fire your OC and you let Gerard Mayo figure it out. It just feels like such a weird situation. The way that Robert Kraft talked about this as if it was the fans seem to not really like the direction of the team, and I'm not the one who's making the decision. It's the fans. It's such a freaking excuse, Rob. You've lost a hold of this situation. You've lost the hold of the roster, the team, and the direction of it, and you're taking it out on Gerard Mayo. Gerard Mayo is going to do what Brian Flores did, man. He's going to go get a job coaching someone's defense. They're going to be mediocre the first year. We're not going to talk that much about Gerard Mayo, and then boom, in a year, going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then he's going to be up for head coaching gigs and then so forth. I guess they want Mike Vrabel. Let's see if that pans out.
Obviously, they can't just go out and say, hey, we want Mike Vrabel right now, and we want him coaching the young quarterback with all the potential and promise. That's what they want. And if that's the move they make, probably a smart move at the end of the day. Probably a smart move for both of them. I think Gerard Mayo can find greener pastures and find more success elsewhere than New England, where he would just be buried on this team, middling around. I don't think Gerard Mayo is taking this Patriots team to the playoffs. He could take a different team to the playoffs once he gets established there. Vrabel can do that, though. We're just going to already – football is too fluid of a sport. It's got too many moving pieces to have these you will be the next head coach for sure situation deals. That is just it's too much for me. And Mayo had this team playing out of their minds, above their potential, how bad they really were. But he bungled the entire Jacoby Brissett, Drake May operation from the beginning. He never went to the podium and looked like he had a semblance of what he wanted to do or a real pulse on what he had with both quarterbacks throughout the first couple months of the season. Shocker. And you know what? People should be shocked because the initial reports out of New England were he's going to be a project, a long-term project, he being Drake May. And he comes into the season winning games, actually looking competent as a rookie, getting valuable reps. So I don't know if anybody in that building really knew what Drake May was, but the head coach didn't do a good job of I guess, telling that to reporters. That was a total bungling all season. I get why Kraft would think he didn't have the best handle on things.
I just think the biggest issue with this is a first-time young head coach. He's very young. He's in his 30s. To give him this opportunity and then to bail on him, not understanding that it's a learning on the job situation. I had talked about this with Marcus Freeman when he took the Notre Dame job. Young, mid-30s coach, former DC, brilliant defensive mind, great recruiter. He was going to have to learn on the job. That was my frustration, that Notre Dame can't be placed in a situation with a coach learning on the job. I've been proven wrong by that, and I brought that up before. Gerard Mayo, it's the same bit. You can't bail on him after a year and understand that there's going to be headaches and frustrations throughout that process. And then suddenly when those headaches arise, be like, man, I can't really deal with this. We need somebody who's been around for longer. When you buy in at the beginning, you have to be willing to invest long term. It's why that when you talk to people around that building, the sense was in the description was, hey, he gets 3 years. That was everyone who you talked to said he gets 3 years. That was apparently a bunch of bullshit by Robert Kraft, and who had no idea what to expect because he had a couple of really good coaches since he bought the team. And he had the greatest coach of all time that he's become impatient.
Yeah, it's ugly in New England. I don't think they had this all planned that we're just going to get rid of Mayo after a year. But if you are, that lets me know that you're just kind of firing from the hip and hoping that eventually you get the dude just by continuing that process.
Doug Peterson is fired by the Jaguars, but Trent Baalke's coming back. This one, just plain and simple, like, wish we could find the guy whose fault this is.
Yeah.
I wonder who. Baalke has not done a good job drafting. He has not done the past couple drafts have actually been very good, but the foundation of this team and the depth of some of these draft classes have been pretty weak. The roster is shaky and inconsistent, and that is what has placed Doug Peterson in this position where they were not good enough to be competitive after they went on those couple playoff runs. He gets fired. I don't know why anyone would want to touch this situation because Baalke's a dope, but Baalke has not put this team in a position to win, and I'm stunned, and a lot of people are stunned that he continues to get these opportunities.
Yeah, it's like he keeps on I don't know how he keeps on biding his time, because I get getting rid of Doug Peterson. If he couldn't handle or help Trevor Lawrence improve to the level of expectation that a lot of us have for him, fine. He's not the guy. Let's move on. But outside of that, what does the rest of the team hold? Where is the rest of the team to support him? How is that built? It's not built well. Let's get rid of the clown show that is running the operation in Jacksonville. Trent Baalke should not stick around. It's a total mess. If you're getting rid of the coach and you're deciding 5 years into this Trevor Lawrence thing, we haven't made it work, throw the entire kitchen out with the bathwater. Everything. Scrap it. Keep trying to rebuild until you have it, because Trent Baalke is not a guy that instills a lot of faith to actually build it out. People were calling for his job before Doug Peterson even got a shout for him to move on.
I have such a funny thing to say, and I'm not going to say it. I know that you saw what I wrote in the doc. I'm not going to make
You're not
joke.
far off, because there has to be some type of situation like that going on.
I mean, there has to be. I'm not going to make the joke. Here's one that's a little perplexing. And there's now there's a mandate that the Giants have to get to the playoffs next year. The Giants are bringing back Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And as frustrated as a Giants fan as they possibly could be, I actually don't mind this. Did they completely bungle the roster construction and development of this team? Yes. Did they pay Daniel Jones too much money and commit to him too long? Yes. Did they win a game that they weren't supposed to, that knocked them out of contention for the first overall pick, and now they might miss out on drafting a quarterback because the two teams ahead of them might choose to draft said quarterbacks, and they're just going to be screwed, and then the endless cycle continues and continues and continues? Yes, all of that is true. But I have to commend John Mara for one thing. He has been very trigger happy. He has been very just 3 years in and out, 2 years in and out. It has been a string of coaches that have sucked. But I got to give credit that if you're able to get an ounce of a drip of success out of Daniel freaking Jones, albeit short-lived, there's something here. There is. There has to be something here to at least give them one more shot. Show some signs of life. That's it. Am I off base here?
They're the worst team in football. They've been the worst team in football for 8 years.
Screw
Joe.
you.
I'm sorry. You. I'm not trying to be mean. They are awful.
Screw you.
And Dable has made them worse. I'm not intentionally, of course.
He needs to get fat again, man.
Dude,
I miss fat Brian Dable.
Fat Dable may have them at 8 wins.
Stop using Ozempic Dable. Ozempic Dable sucks. He got soft.
You know how
fat, angry, red-faced Dable was the best coach in the NFL, the next great coach in the NFL.
The Giants are so bad that you knew they weren't going to win anything this year when those clips were coming out in the offseason about the back-end dealings with the Saquon stuff. Like, you just knew.
Part about all this,
you just knew they weren't going to be good when you saw that.
Like, you look at them at face value, and you're kind of wondering, like, man, this team's kind of putting off vibes that they don't really know what they're doing. And then you get Hard Knocks come out, the first ever version of it, and they hit a gold mine for clips and for content, because it was Brian Daboll stomping his feet and storming across the entire facility, and then just Joe Schoen doing the worst unintentional bit of like, oh, hey, gee, I wonder how you build an NFL team. His whole demeanor was like, gee, it'd be kind of interesting if this happened. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm the one who's running the team? Oh, you mean I should be doing this? Oh, okay. His son had more intelligence than he did when it came to roster construction.
It's media market number one, man. You actually need a big time coach. You can't keep on picking from the runts of a litter that just might be a good fit schematically. You need a big dog in there. You need someone that can handle it. That's why I almost respect Rex Ryan trying to go back to that Jets job, because he knows he can handle that media. He knows he can dance with all those savages carving him up week in and week out. Brian Daboll can't. Brian Daboll's a normal football coach. New York is not capable of winning with a normal football coach. You need a psychopath like Mike Tomlin. Who am I thinking of? You need who's that? Why am I blanking? Whatever. They need a real football coach, a real big time.
Are you talking about
Coughlin is who I'm talking.
Well, Tom Coughlin and
Parcells. You need somebody loud. Yeah, you need somebody that can actually. You need a bully. You can't have Brian Daboll who isn't a bully. You need an.
Well, he was. Fat Brian Daboll was a bully.
Fat Brian Daboll still had training camp fights out the ass. Fat Brian Daboll was.
Yeah, but training camp fights, I don't think that this team is fighting enough in training camp.
Joe, it's every other story from their training camps.
Not this past year.
Catch the ball. Suck.
Giants and suck. The worst part about this is that I believe, if I remember correctly, I saw on Twitter, I might be wrong. I believe I saw on Twitter that the sense was that they poked around and kind of looked, okay, who would be our available candidates? And they didn't like them. How can you say that when Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn would be options? Both of them are tremendous options. Outside of that, understandably, it's pretty thin. It's quite thin. Like, who else would you're going to hear a lot of names that are brought up for candidates for these jobs, but I don't see another coaching tree that I wouldn't want to touch other than the Lions one at the current moment.
You wouldn't want Kingsbury?
No, I don't want Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, what Cliff Kingsbury is?
He's had one good year as a coordinator, and he ain't getting hired as a head coach. And if he gets hired by as a head coach, that would be some nut ass shit.
Do you want Raheem Morris? Give him to the Giants right now.
Yeah, man.
Do you want him?
No.
Oh.
News of a returning head coach. I'm surprised with the lack of overall firings.
It's maddening.
They haven't been many.
This
next one's proclamations of returning. I can understand the Colts bringing back Chris Ballard. I can understand it. He has put together and provided enough equity in his drafting, deep picks that he has pulled for roster construction since he took over. This team has been competitive. Shane Steichen's not a good coach. Shane Steichen is not a good coach. I will not forgive him for his mishandling in the way that they're using Anthony Richardson. It does not. It feels like they're trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. And there's the speculation of like Anthony Richardson and the whole story that came out where like the players on the team were trying to like meet with him individually and trying to tell him to lock in and stuff like that. But man, why isn't Steichen doing this?
Yeah.
Why isn't Shane Steichen the one who is getting him to rally? And like, why is Joe Flacco the guy that you turn to as the spark for the team when he wasn't doing good enough? I just don't get this, man, this whole situation. The opportunity for a quick reset. The only thing that can make sense, though, is that for Anthony Richardson to improve, year 3 in the same scheme is likely better for him than starting from scratch.
People are real mad at Ballard this offseason, and I get it. You're not making the playoffs in the AFC South, which every year is up for grabs. You have a free 4 wins against the Jaguars and against the Titans. Like, you should be actually competing down the stretch if you're the Indianapolis Colts. And they keep on swinging on quarterbacks. I actually respect Ballard for saying, we're going to take a swing. We're going to go top 5, get a guy, see what happens. Steichen is just a boob. Like, if you have the construction of this team, right, you've got a couple really good wide receivers. You got a really good wide receiver in Pittman. Alec Pierce is a great complementary piece. Jonathan Taylor obviously still has some juice. They don't know how to have him be consistent which is it has to be so frustrating seeing that some games he's completely bottled up, other games popping the hell off. And the defense, they know how to draft a linebacker. They know how to draft DBs. They can build an actual football. They can build a competent football team, but they can't play competent football. I don't know what the Colts are doing. If you're not good enough, get better. And that's not just players, that's coaching and personnel. So you cannot just keep on just walking in this malaise as the boring Indianapolis Colts with a boring record at the end of the season. You either need to be awful Indianapolis Colts, making big plays, drafting high, or you need to be exciting, boring Indianapolis Colts, just watching paint dry, bleeding your opponents to death in wins going to the playoffs. Just absolute boring, awful team that can't get enough wins for the playoffs, can't get enough losses for a good draft pick. This cycle needs to end because they're just going to get caught up in the wash.
Well, they're not one of those teams that needs to be in a top position to take a quarterback. So, I don't mind, but you're right. When you get trapped in the hell of constantly competing for your division, but falling short and missing the playoff every single year, that's how you get stuck because you're not in that position to pick high and to get franchise-changing players. I don't know how to fix this team. It's one of those few teams where you kind of look at them and you're like, well, shit, this team sucks. Like, how are we supposed to where do you course correct? And the only course correction is Anthony Richardson just has a switch flip.
Yeah.
And the only way that you maybe get a switch flip is you bring in somebody who knows how to talk to him and is going to know how to, get him to lock in. We'll see. Speaking of guys that are not locked in, Tyreek Hill is going all over the place here. He was telling reporters yesterday, I just got to do what's best for me and my family. If that's here or wherever the case may be, I'm finna open the door for myself. I'm opening the door. I'm out, bro. It was great playing here, but at the end of the day, I got to do what's best for my career because I'm too much of a competitor to be just out there. Dolphins missed the playoffs. Tua's been in and out of the lineup. Understandably, little messy situation with his health. With Tyreek, he also has now superimposed his face on Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
This feels like a dumb bit. He has turned into a bit of a media guy. He's turned into a bit of a content creator. He's a streamer. This feels like an ultimate really dumb bit. I feel like he is doing a bit.
I don't think it's a bit. I think he actually wants out of him. I think he actually wants out of Miami. And he wants to, I guess, control his narrative, but he's doing it in a trolling way, which makes people not respect the narrative as much. That's just how sports fans are.
And he's already always kind of really jokey about it. So it's kind of hard to really tell.
He pushes the
envelope.
What is he doing? In a lot of ways, Tyreek Hill pushes the envelope. But he's still a fantastic player. The Miami experiment is over. Tua, arm strength, Tua doesn't have a strong enough arm if he's in the lineup. Additionally, Tyreek Hill is a bully player. He is a strong, physical, fast twitch, faster than you and also stronger than you type of guy. Miami isn't that team. Miami is a tall, slender, fast wide receiver. It is running backs that don't weigh more than 210 pounds. Miami is trying to be a track team, and they don't have the toughness to go to the playoffs or even win a playoff game. We all knew that. We all know Miami's a soft-ass team. So I think Tyreek Hill needs to go somewhere that's harder. Like Kansas City was great for him. It was cold. That team was mean. He was mean. It was great. Miami, clown show. I think he needs to go to an alpha franchise, somewhere with a quarterback with a big enough arm to get it to him down the field. I think he still has the juice to be able to burn just about any defender in the league. Find him that location. Tyreek Hill doesn't lose a step in his next destination.
Imagine him on the Rams. I don't know if they have the money for that, but imagine him playing for the Rams. How chaotic that would be.
Dude, I'd put him on the Chargers. Rocket arm Herbert, football guy mentality, Harbaugh. That works for me. Complemented with Ladd in a run game. Yeah, Chargers would be a Super Bowl favorite.
Stick them on the Jets and watch them rot. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. We'll talk to you later.